All right, officially welcome everybody to today's 2025-2026 IDEA Part B Grant Application Refresher and New Enhancements Training. I have started the recording for everybody, so thanks again for joining us. We've got a lot to go through, some great enhancements, and I want to make sure that I leave a lot of time for questions for everybody. So before we start, for anybody else just now joining, we did just get our state allocation in, so I'm in the process of calculating y'all's allocations, and I will be sending that out to everybody. But just that's the great news for today. That's why Lisa's in such a happy mood and smiling. So hopefully that will bring joy to you all as well. So let's do a real brief agenda. We're going to do a brief overview of the funding just so that I'm, again, sharing with you the funding streams we're talking about today. We'll talk a little bit, just reminders between preliminary and our final app, because sometimes that causes confusion when people are filling out because they're like, where's the rest of my carryover and things like that. We'll talk about maintenance of effort, MOE, eligibility, and the compliance standards. That's our expenditures versus our budgets. And then we're going to talk about breaking down the components of the app. So how do we know who should fill out what? And we're going to go over all the enhancements, the excess cost sheet and the other assurances, and how to get logged in and such if you are newer. Okay, so that's my update I just shared with you all. Let's get into it. As a state, we actually got 227,083 less than last year. So not a ton less, but less all the less. So what are we doing to help protect you guys and hold you harmless? Right now, the state set aside is going to take the hit as much as possible. So as I'm processing preliminary allocations, there will be some of you guys that decide you don't want to take funding, but I have to offer it. I have to calculate that for each LEA. Then they will have an option to say whether or not they want to take funds. If they don't want to take the funds, they still have to follow all of the things under IDEA, offering a FAPE and everything else under the sun, should they have a student that comes in. So again, they can revoke that. And when they do, I recalculate that back out to you guys. That's why we have a couple different versions of allocations. And then also it allows for that final push in the fall when I find out how many of our brand new charters who actually landed. They do their best right now to estimate in the spring for me so that I can put an estimated allocation together for them. But then in the fall, when we see who actually landed, we then recalculate, and if they were over, you all get more money, and vice versa. So we have to true those up in the fall. But I will send that announcement out. And this year, I did want to also say that we're using the IC data for low income counts. So hopefully you all had accurate data there, because that's what we used for the other component of our allocations. Quick reminder, 85% of your IDEA allocations based on total enrollment, not sped kids, total enrollment. And 15% is based off of that low income rate for your district. So that's why the numbers matter. And if you have private schools, we'll talk about this. It is worth your while every year to do your outreach, because you have to, but then it's worth your while to get updated total enrollment counts for your private schools, because that enrollment is added to your enrollment on the potential that you may have to serve students there. So their enrollment counts as your enrollment. So big deal for you to make sure you're capturing that. At the bottom here, I still have said this, as I always say, since I'm holding harmless, even though our state got less money, you guys as a whole are going to get the same allocated amongst you all. If your enrollment dropped or your low income dropped, you could see a drop, right? But other districts, if they saw hot and heavy big increases, and this is happening for some of our online schools, depending on where and what they're offering, sometimes we see growth there, and we might see a little bit of loss at some of our traditional schools. So you guys know what's going on with your enrollment, but that might help you guys say, oh, that's why we got less money. And I will do my best to also put in those comparisons like I did last year, so that you guys can say, oh, wow, we dropped. Why? Oh, I can see from this to this, it was our enrollment. Oh, no, it was our low income. So really, I try to help you guys understand that. Okay, So let's have a quick overview here. IDEA Part B preschool and the school-aged grants are there to help us with the excess costs of special education services. We know that doesn't cover all of it. On average in our state, it's covering about 18%. Medicaid's covering anywhere from 13 to 15% of your overall costs. But the purpose of this IDEA grant is to help you guys to provide those services. It is to help with the excess costs. It is supplemental to y'all. All right, next up here. Here's just the information on the assistance listing or the CFDA numbers for you guys that are business managers to set that up in your CFAs. And then just again, for you to recognize that when you see it inside the application itself. Okay, and in the GRA. Now, quick reminder on the differences. We have two application cycles. We do our best guess budgets. Yes, I want the money in the spring. That's what's going to open hopefully early next week for y'all to start doing. Best guess, and I always say it opens around the 15th, which is today. I do have preliminaries calculated, but I have to go through all the approvals here at the state as well before I give them out to you. So it hopefully will open, like I'm hoping maybe Monday, but I'll obviously send out the announcement that it's ready to go. We're going to look at beta together today. But on this, there's two different pieces. Right now it's budget, budget, budget. You want the money, and here's potentially how I would spend it. So it's not going to include your carryover. That will be in the second part. So don't freak out when you're like, well, wait, I know I'm going to have 20% carryover. So this budget looks too low. You're going to redo your budgets when you start reporting in the final application, when you tell me what you spent during this 24-25 school year. So you get a whole nother chance to do the budget. I kind of joke that this is the garbage budget. It feels like garbage because it's not complete and you're not done spending this year, but it's still a budget. It's not complete garbage. It's a budget that says, yes, I want the money, and here's how I would potentially spend it on my staffing, on supplies, on those types of things. So this is kind of just shows you those actual expenses. I'm showing you the eligibility test for maintenance of effort is the budget right now. You have to say I'm going to spend at least as much or more. Now, partial funding is a new deal to us. Last year, you probably remember getting a smaller amount first, and then she sent us the rest of the money, and it was weird. But it was Lisa doing a lot of programming with our state programmers to make sure that this works. So this came down from OSEP, Office of Special Ed, said they wanted us to give you guys money up front. They give us about 33 to 32% up front in July. And then they give us the rest of it. So that part's forward funded. They give us the rest of it in October. But their point to us as states were, you should give some of that to the districts so they can continue that offering of FAPE, help them out a little bit. A lot of you guys had made sure to earmark or carry over some of your own funding, but this is the new method going forward. So I'll send you your preliminary allocations next week as far as the total. But then in July, the first week of July, usually right after the 4th, we get that 30%-ish from the feds. And at that point, I will be giving you guys about 30% of that preliminary amount. So you'll see that hit the GRA. You can start drawing it down as of July 1st, as long as I have a preliminary application from you guys. So that is you guys certifying, yes, I want the money, me approving in that budget that you hit the budget for MOE. I'll then give you the 30% and you can start spending. Okay, so it might help you also with timing. And for those of you who are out of money, it'll be helpful. You'll get the remaining of that after October when we get the rest here at the state. And then also after you guys have that final application completed. And by then, we're going to have some new numbers as far as final allocations, and I'll shore those up. Now, let's go over some of the sections of the application. There's a lot of sections, but on the left, you'll see here that I have kind of what it is, and then on the right, who's in charge. It's showing like what it is across. The bullets go across. So on the LEA home contacts, that's really who is in charge of this application. If I need to make comments in there, it's going to go to that person that's listed, and we'll show you that in a minute. The coordinated early intervening section is optional. Unless you have comprehensive early intervening, and there's usually only a couple of districts a year, and you know who you are. Then there's an option for school-wide programs. We don't currently have anyone operating under that. It is harder to provide and prove out FAPE if it's all mushed together. It is popular in some states. It hasn't seemed to catch on here. If you have questions, reach out to me individually. We'll kind of skim over that a little today, though. The budgets, that's really where you guys are going to put in your it's object code level. So was it staffing? Was it supplies? For your budget and your expense reports. When you get to the state and local maintenance of effort, that's how much did you spend out of state and local dollars and how much are you going to potentially budget. That's the thresholds that you have to meet and maintain in order to qualify for the supplemental IDEA funding. Okay, so again, without that, I can't qualify you for the grant. Now on this next one, excess cost calculation, that's kind of been confusing to folks. We tried to help automate parts of it from some of your other sections, and I'll show you that today. But that's how much did your LEA spend on other non-federal, non-SPED specific funding sources that also benefited students with disabilities. And so when you type in those numbers, that's what it's doing. It's calculating. Everyone in the nation has to do this. If you're an LEA, and we have to show the feds other funding that's being expensed, that's potentially indirectly at least, benefiting these students with disabilities. The last couple sections are assurances and a self-assessment checklist that helps us know if you've had turnover. It might potentially make you higher risk. That could be a new superintendent, a new SPED director, or it could be a new business manager. Any of those, somebody's new, you might need some extra help too. So that's why you fill those out. This is the who's in charge or who should really do it. And I'm going to skim over it, but really you can see there's a lot of business manager fields here. And it really became an issue as we started doing more and more monitoring, that we found that a lot of times the application didn't match what was on your audits. You really need the help of your business manager. If they can give you those numbers and you want to input them, that's fine. But you've really got to make sure that this is real data, that's real expenditures, audited financial data. There's some stuff that I would not expect you guys to know if you're a special ed director, but if you guys want to go through the process with the special ed director, business manager together, that's up to you. But this is just to help you with that. Okay, super key details here. Around the 15th is when we're going to open this preliminary. So I'm thinking it's going to be early next week after I get approvals on the allocations. And then if you have your application sent back to you before June 30th, it's because I really need something, and I will give you the note as to why it's wrong or why I need, or something is missing, usually is what it is. Like if you asked for an exception and you forgot to attach something. But we've tried really hard to build in validations so that it will slow you down on the forefront to say, wait, you're missing this, because I hate to have it sit in my queue for 2 weeks and then ask you at the 19th hour when you forgot probably what you had put in the first place. So it's really there to help you guys. So I appreciate that. It might be frustrating with some of those errors, but they're there to prompt you that, hey, something's missing. Please correct this. And again, always reach out if you have questions on any of those errors that pop up. The due date's really, I got to approve it before June 30th. So I say the tentative due date is June 15th. If you guys need a slight extension or something's happening, I need you guys to holler at me really quickly so I can either help you. Really, again, most of this is, you could copy last year's budget almost, really, because you're going to get another stab at it. So don't put, too much effort, I guess, into that, as you know it's going to change after you guys finalize spending. But again, I have to have one that says, yes, I want the money. And here's how I'll potentially spend it. And again, I have to approve all y'all's by June 30th. Okay. Preliminary application. We've been talking about the budget. How do I know what's the difference? When you get in there next week, it will say 25-26 up here at the top, but you'll notice this is when you're in like the maintenance of effort screen, you won't see the prior year section. You'll only see section 1, which was actually your 23-24 school year. And you'll see what are you going to budget for the 25-26 school year. So when you're doing maintenance of effort, again, you're going to be basing it off of 2 years data because you're not done closing out this year. So again, you'll modify your budgets again over the summer as you start closing out. So even in here, this is your best guess. You got to meet or exceed what you did 2 years ago until you know what you've done for closing for this year. Final application, there is that prior year expense. You'll see it both in the school age preschool sections. You'll also see it in maintenance of effort. You'll see that open up. That's where you're going to put plunk those numbers in, and then it will populate any carryover for you. And here's that in the section 2 for expenditures for maintenance of effort. So what I'm saying in here is you will get a message now if you don't meet or exceed what you put in for your closeout. So if you met maintenance of effort, for instance, on the preliminary application based on what you spent in 23-24 school year, but then you populate what you spent through this current school year during the final app and it went up, it's going to prompt you to update that budget section. I used to have to send those back to you. Now it's going to prompt you. Okay, so again, you get another stab at that. So just breaking down the sections, this is what they look like on the right side of the screen. That's what you guys see when you're navigating. You won't see ARP this year because that one is going to be phased out. It's been gone for a while. We finally got it out of there. But really, you're going to be telling us your prior year app expenditures during the final app, updating the budgets, meeting maintenance of effort, updating that one, determining the excess cost. That part is only specific to that final application, and then more of the assurances. Okay, that was a lot. Let's see what's new. I'm talking fast because I want to show it to you live. And I always talk fast. Okay, guys. Now, here we have the home screen where we have the first thing you guys fill out. Famous business manager. You're all famous in my eyes because you famously get these things done for me. So you're going to put your information in here. You can opt out in here, and you always have been able to. A lot of the smaller charters don't have any kiddos that are kindergarten aged 5, so they will actually opt out of the preschool funding. I actually put the word preschool in here because 619 funding didn't mean a lot to people, and sometimes you guys would check that box, and then I'd have districts say, how come I didn't get preschool funding? So hopefully this helps clarify that a little bit, just having the word there. And then if you guys checked both boxes, it will populate another screen that I'll show you later to say that you'll still offer FAPE, but you're not taking money. So this is the magic first screen that you have to populate to get everything else to open up. Okay. The second enhancement, maintenance of effort. Now you have a validation button. There are a couple of you guys, a lot of charters that are smaller don't bill Medicaid. And I used to kick back the application saying, where's your match? You got to have your match. And that was frustrating to folks. So now if you check a box, you're certifying that we do not bill Medicaid. But for everybody else that does, it also would populate an error that says, hey, wait, I'm missing your match. I need you to pull it out. So if you guys pay it out of the 100-616, just note that you'll just need to reduce that line item that you see here. You would reduce this line item and then pull it back down here. But if this field isn't filled out, it's going to either want this box checked or it's going to want an amount. And when we look at the applications, we always compare to last year's on one screen and this year's on the next one. So hopefully that's helpful. And I did have somebody say, isn't preschool 100-522? Yeah, that's preschool. 100-616 is your education support services. It's kind of like non-instructional services for special ed. But we do have some folks pay the Medicaid match out of there, and that's totally fine to do. But you'll need to reduce that line item just in this screen here to pull the match down here to show us transparently that you've included it, and it all gets added together to an adjusted total. We just don't want you to double count it because it would make it look like maintenance of effort was too much. All right, so why is this helpful? Why did I make all these validations for the Medicaid match? Well, because again, if you don't bill for it, I don't want to kick it back to you and have you have to wait in line again to get your application finalized and submitted. And we have to make sure that we transparently are capturing Medicaid match. And I got to tell you guys, this last year, you probably saw the OPE report where they were talking about how underfunded SPED is after you guys get the school funding formula 5.5% and 6% calculations, how much is still coming out of your other general funds because they're underfunding you in that aspect. And the reasons that I'm able to give them those numbers is because I actually take out that match. And I don't say, oh, look how much they got in Medicaid. It's not 100%. It's that less the match. So I'm able to do those things and give those figures to both the legislature and to folks like at OPE, Office of Performance or Evaluation, to make sure that they can tell a true story. We don't want to inflate it and make it look like you guys are getting more money than you are. So that's why we need those there. Okay. Enhancement 3, we have something new for your exceptions. When you guys are doing maintenance of effort exceptions, sometimes it's kind of confusing if you've met it or not, or, why, how do I see my new per student rate or whatever it is. So we've made a little enhancement here that hopefully will help you guys see that. So let's say in this example, you are going to have a $10,000 expenditure exception. In here, you'll notice some squares that I have highlighted. You have to add the file to show what it was, and then you've got it filled in that I've met this because it was a departure or something for $10,000. Well, let's see what it's doing. Now, in here, what the maintenance of effort always does is it says on section 1, this is the most recent reporting I've had, and the adjusted total was 4.909 from 4.909 million. So that's what I'm looking for in the application. So if I pop over to section 2, in this case, I was saying we only spent 4.9 million, but that would have been 9 million short. But if you look at the blue arrow here, we have pulled in the exception for 10,000. And now down at the red arrow, it's actually adding it together visually for you all to see. Because you've added the $10,000 exception, it's now smart enough and showing you with your exception, you've exceeded the prior, and that's how you made it. So it's helpful to folks because sometimes they couldn't show when they were how much they needed for the exception to get to the right number. And it was hard to flip between screens. So we hope that this is a transparency piece for you guys to help you understand how you met that with your exception. Not that many of you guys actually do exceptions because, as you know, costs just keep going up. But for when you guys have staff turnover and you've hired somebody partial through the year and there's a gap in time where you didn't pay somebody, it is worth your while to grab those. Or if somebody was at a higher pay rate and you hire somebody fresh out of college and you're paying them a lot less to do the same thing, those are valid reasons. Go in there, do those exceptions. Sometimes you have a kiddo that passed away or that moved out of your district, and they had exact direct costs you can put together for me. Those are ways to drop those maintenance of effort in those exceptions. So if you have questions on that, anytime, reach out. Okay, enhancement 4. We're just going to keep on trucking. So if you guys have comprehensive coordinated early intervening services, only a few of you again have that, you will now have those 15% budget earmarks that you have. You'll have to fill out a detailed budget, and that's for validation reporting as well. So again, a few of you does this apply to, but it's a more broken out budget and detailed reporting. Private schools, though, there are a lot more of you that have private schools. So I'm going to run down this with you guys, just so you guys know what's coming, and I'll show you this next. Private school reporting, we had to add some more sections. You have to be able to provide the total enrollment, and we talked about this earlier. That helps your enrollment the next year for kids you may potentially need to serve. LEAs have to also enter the most recent consultation date on file. That's not new, but that is something you do. You have to attach affirmation of the consultation documentation. So that you actually have to attach this time. And you have to edit the schools and the affirmation dates when you're doing the final application in case you've done them over the summer. So when you do preliminary application, if the last time you did consultation was a year ago, I don't care. But when we do the final application, I want to make sure it's all within about a year's timeline, so I know that it's been done again. Okay, and then you can add. You get the opportunity to add a more detailed budget, because before we just earmarked it, we calculated that private school proportionate share for equitable services, but now you guys are going to have a more detailed budget. And remember that the application itself is a secure site. So when you guys are uploading those, just know it's secure. So when I was talking about the adding and editing of the data, this is where you'll add that affirmation of your private schools. And then in here, you can see the most recent date that these private schools were contacted, and you're going to give us your current enrollment. These enrollment counts will get added to next year's allocations for you guys when I'm calculating, so super important. And then if you needed to edit this when you got a more updated number in the fall or whenever you've done those consultations, that is important as well. So just make sure you know, thanks to Ramona, she had told us 2 years ago, I think it was, that it would be great to be able to edit these because when I do my consultation, the numbers change and I have to delete them. So now, again, you guys have the opportunity to edit that and update those, but it will require that you add those files. And this is increased accountability coming down from the federal government as well. And in here, some more validation is new. Some of you all would add the private schools, but you wouldn't be filling out this count. Well, these counts are your child counts that determine the earmarked proportionate share calculation that is put in place for equitable services funding. So now if you guys add a private school period, it is going to require you to come in here and calculate both the school age and preschool numbers. And really what this is doing, it's saying, give me your child count, the last child count, and then tell me how much you have at the private schools. Okay, so district and then charter, or not charter, district and then private school. And it does the calculation for you. But this number that it calculates is then going to turn into a budget that you have to fill out. But I don't know how much it's going to be until you tell me it. So you tell me that proportional share, and then I will be able to calculate it. So when we're in the
Lisa,
final, yeah, go ahead.
quick question on that. If we
Yeah.
have a private school that will not share their enrollment information because they do not want to have any participation, do we just put zero there, or how do you want to handle that type of a
Huh.
situation?
You know, the other thing you can do sometimes is even through Googling, you can, sometimes it will show like information about a school, like X amount of people are enrolled. It might be outdated, but if that's the best you can get, then that's the best you can get. But it's helpful to you because just because they say they don't want anything, they might have some new parent that comes in that says, no, I want that. I had that at the other private school. And then all of a sudden they're on the phone with you. So those enrollment counts are, if you can get, I don't have a way to vet them. We have no data collection at the state, but for the federal funding for y'all, we need it. So that's where it's on the onus of you guys to get the best number you can. Now, if I know there's a brand new tiny pop-up private school and you had 800 people, I might question it, right? I might be like, I don't think it's that big, Brian. But
Right.
do your best because it's important. And this is why. So what we just saw was based on the calculation that was made from the private school students that this is going to be, in this example here, $4,789 is going to be the allocation. So when you guys are in the final application, I'll have known by then how much you calculated. And then it's going to pop up this new section for you called the Private School Proportionate Share School Age Budget. And it's going to say how you're going to do it. Well, it might all be purchase services, but it might be you've got some staffing that you're going to send to do, or that they're going to come to your school. So you're going to notate what it is. So there's, again, some more increased accountability to states to say, well, it looks like you are calculating proportionate share, but no one's spending it. How come? And we all know that we just passed House Bill 93, and there may be more students going there. And they'll also be getting equitable services from you. So there may be those folks that have had an IEP that have now left to go to a private school that now they want equitable services. We do think we may see more of that. But we have to have a good way to articulate it and budget it. Now, here's where it gets weird for y'all that have private schools. I'm going to show you here in the final application. When you go into your budget section, you will see some new line items. If you have CCEIS, that's that Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Service, it will have calculated the 15% and pulled it out of your total. You start with the total grant, it will whittle out private school proportionate share, and if you have CCEIS. Most of y'all will just see that have private schools will see this set aside. So this is now added to these other things to get the total budget. And in this case, this one had some carryover as well. So it's all these things added up is going to be what you'll have to balance in your budget. But from the new allocation, it will subtract out private school, and give you a separate grant in the GRA. So in that case, if you had a private school-aged grant for 4,789 or whatever that was, you in the GRA, you'll have a whole separate grant, and your main grant will be reduced by that amount. This might seem wonky, but here's what it will do. Business managers are running blind, y'all. You don't know what they're doing in the program with private school proportionate share until they tell you sometimes. Some of you guys have processes where once a quarter or periodically you guys have somebody say, hey, move 8 hours of Sue the SLP's time for this month. She did the equitable services for these 5 kiddos. Maybe that's your process and you have a journal entry, but now it's going to have to be pulled down separately, because when you guys were doing GRA claims, you would just say $100,000, and somewhere schmortled in the mix, as I call it, was some equitable services. But we don't know until you guys go to report once a year that you didn't spend enough or any. And then you guys are saying, hey man, I didn't know. I'm just the business manager. And I had a great question coming in from Daylin and yes, you guys need to have those expenditures in a different place. I still am having you hold them in Fund 257 or 58, School Aged and Preschool Fund. But if you have another account project code, or I know that's what they call it in Infinite Visions. If you have another section of the ledger code, the account code detail that you can stick it in, that's what I would recommend, because then as the business manager, you can just run the quick report. It all defaults to this little code. That's going to be your documentation, easy peasy to upload to that new earmarked grant. Now, overall, total, you still get the full amount, but this is going to be increased accountability for districts to show throughout the year that they're drawing down and they're doing equitable services. And as you guys have heard on the federal level, there's been more of a push to be able to provide additional services and even funding sources potentially here in the future to serve private schools and so on and so forth. But even under our current scenario of current IDEA, we didn't have a good way to capture this. So business managers, I hope that this will help you guys to have those conversations back to the SPED directors and say, hey, I just did all of our drawdowns, but I'm still, here we are in the 3rd quarter and I don't have a penny of private school stuff. What's going on, right? Hopefully it's not 3rd quarter when this is happening. Maybe it's 1st quarter. Hey, just checking in. How are we going to do this? Are you going to let me know? Do you want me to direct code hours? What are we going to do so that we have those expenditures captured to show that we're serving? So again, I know it's going to feel weird, but we'll get through it, and you guys, it'll be transparent and hopefully helpful to the business managers, okay? All right, so why the changes? Again, just the increased scrutiny all day long to states. How come this isn't happening? And the other part, this last bullet, is that the SEA is supposed to approve all your budgets. Well, we were approving a one-liner, proportionate share. We had no idea what you're doing, right? So if you're only offering online speech delivery because you don't have staff to spare, and the other private school just says no thanks, that's different, but you can articulate that. And when Lisa comes a call in and says, hey, Brian, I don't see anything being spent, what's going on? You guys can tell me that, hey, we've had pushback, this is what we've got going on. And then we may just say, okay, great, we need some sort of documentation or something there where they denied services and said no thanks, because there are very slim provisions where I can recycle that back into your budget, but it has to be flat out denial. They want nothing to do with you. They won't let you in your school kind of scenario. But here's the other component of that. Just because one school said no doesn't mean there aren't 4 other private schools that you're serving. And in that case, you're supposed to reabsorb that money back into equitable services. So again, this hopefully will help the business managers see what's going on and help you guys just to have that high level budget component. So if you have questions on that, please let me know. I do want to remind you real quick before we go look live at the app about the excess cost page. We had built in some automations in there that where we import stuff, but it's very specific to the order of operations, if you will, like a math equation, because we were doing Boolean algebra for you guys in the backside with programming. It's amazing, but you guys have to fill out the enrollment first. And then it will import into any of these peach colored sections. Okay. So you already tell me in the other sections how much you spent. I import it, do some splits based on the enrollment. So you don't have to do that math. You will still have to fill in Title 1A or 3A if you spent that, and you just split it according to the split from your enrollment, like 60/40, 40/60, whatever it might be. You'll still have to fill out these numbers up here. Again, according to the splits of your enrollment. I don't expect that you have it broken out any other way. But really that piece is driven by these are driven by what you put in here. You do still have to put in your actual real child count. This is not according to enrollment. That's according to real child count. Okay, but hopefully that will help you through that. And this is me showing you where these are driven from the other sections that you already filled out. So that's not new, but it was kind of confusing last year to folks. I want to make sure we remind you. Now, let me just really quickly give you the reminder where to go. This will all be on the slideshow that I'm going to email out to everybody that's on today. You're just going to get the copy from me before it gets posted to the site. The application budgets, where to get in there for the application, just the reminders where the login is. It is created. I'm just waiting for allocations to be approved here. Remember that you select your drop down. These are all just reminders. This is the one I wanted to get to. You have to save your work. So if you guys get interrupted constantly, like I know you do, just hit save all the time, because typically what will happen is you'll get kicked out of the system for inactivity, and then you've got a whole bunch of stuff you just lost. So hit save all the time. All right, filling it in, jumping forward. This is beta, a screenshot from beta, which I have been doing all these designs for. You have to, when you first fill out the district home, it won't show anything over here until you fill this out. Okay, so you have to say the best business manager that you are. You have to start filling this sucker out, or whoever it is. Maybe it's the best sped director that's going to be the main contact. But whoever fills out this section is going to get all the email if we have to kick it back, or if we're ending up putting in any comments, it's going to this person who's up here. Now, if you don't want preschool funding, make sure you check that. If you do want it, don't check that. If you don't have private schools, you need to check this box and it will turn this function off. So do that so you don't get confused as to why you have that showing up. Okay, and then everybody except one LEA in the state is doing state and local funds. The one LEA that's doing local only has a permanent local levy. So that's why they had that option. Everybody else, you got to check this and hit save. When you do that, magically these things will open up. And it is magical. Okay, magically it's scary because it opens up new sections. So this is just kind of what I was saying. If you check both boxes here, you're not going to get any funding. And we already went over that. Make sure you're filling this out. Now, here's what the assurances come in. If you say no, you're going to have this whole, I have to still provide FAPE even if I don't want funding. But we had to build this to prove out to auditors that we have a way for them to still say they'll provide services. Most of you will not be filling that out. I'm going to skip through some of this to get to where private schools, back to private schools, do not report for profits or freestanding preschools or freestanding kindergartners. You don't want to put those in because they're not subject to some of the provisions that we have under our state laws. Okay, I'm skimming through all these, but they are going to be on the slides, but I'm just going to get back through in here again is what I wanted to just show you again. When we look at private schools, this slide is in here for you guys to help guide you so that you aren't confused and why it looks like you got less money. Okay. Budget tab reminders. Remember when you're in the preliminary application, it won't give you any carryover. This will be zero until you do the final application. Acceptable budget narratives. Please tell me a little bit of detail how it's tied to special ed. I don't want to kick it back or something that's salaries and benefits. That's what it says already right here. I don't require the FTE counts, but if you want to put that in there, that's helpful. A lot of times, here's a budget error that pops up for you guys. It's going to tell you you're not balanced. So make sure that you're balanced. Whatever the total budget is, you have to have total expenditures. I'm going to skip through some of these too. School age budget expenditures. Again, this is just making sure that you guys are noticing the iFarms object codes. So please make sure you give the right types of details here. And then indirect costs, those are imported in. So if you haven't turned in your indirect costs, make sure you get that to school finance, and then it will be populated for you, and then you can budget against it. Let's see, or you can spend against it. Prior year reporting, oh yeah, carryover. Again, carryover will show in the budgets after you've filled out the prior year expenditures. And let's see, I think maintenance of effort, I just want to talk real quick about. Maintenance of effort threshold will always be highlighted as the highest amount, the amount it's looking for. It'll also be showing in section 1 what that is that you're going to be looking for. You guys are going to see section 1 and section 3 when you guys are doing the budgets. This is the other piece I wanted to get to. I think we talked about this earlier, but I can't reiterate it enough. When you guys get in there and you guys are doing your budgets, it's going to be based off of 2 years prior, and then it will require you to redo it if you exceed it once you've closed out the 24-25 school year. But again, it's going to be based off of 2 years ago to start with. Okay, so I know that's kind of confusing. It's just a bad timing of when we do these applications. Let's see, section 2. Yeah, I think I've driven this one home for you guys. This is when you guys are filling this out, it will actually be for the 24-25 school year this year. You've got to make sure that you're including everything towards maintenance of effort, the Medicaid match, everything under the sun. iFarms codes are in here to help guide where you're spending it and how and what you need to pull in. I'm just going to back down to this part. When you guys are doing the budgets and the exceptions sections for both the current year we're closing out and for what we're anticipating for next year, I have in the slides details of if you're going to be, if you guys had meets on your LEA determinations, if you've met, and this is SPED director language here, you are possibly going to be able to take what's known as an adjustment to local effort under maintenance of effort. So you could reduce what your maintenance of effort is if you have a positive, basically, LEA determinations. If you haven't met and you still are needs of some sort, you can't take that exception, but the exception is driven on whether or not you get more IDEA funding. So even if you were great on the determinations, if you don't get an increase, you can't take that exception and it'll be grayed out. You won't see this box opened up to you, but this will be an example. If you got more funding in the newest year, it will calculate 50% of the increase and tell you the maximum amount you could reduce maintenance of effort by. You could combo this with other exceptions that you fill out in the other exceptions worksheets. So if you guys have a lot of changes going on, a lot of drop in students and so on and so forth, I always encourage you to do those exceptions, kind of reset yourselves so that you can still continue to use the IDEA funding annually. I know it kind of feels like we're skipping around. I am skipping around. I want to show you the live version here in just a minute because we have about 15 minutes left. Comment section, just note that if you put something in there, it comes to us. So we get to see what your notes are. So if you had something wonky or you want to put in another explanation on something, please feel free to put in a comment. It doesn't unsubmit anything. It just tells us, hey, so-and-so put in a comment so that we know to go look at it. I think it's a great way for you guys to help us with that. On the assurances, make sure you read through all of those because you're certifying that you have all the things in place, such as adopting a special ed manual, abiding to any and all temporary rules. You can't submit the application without saying yes, but it's a good chance for you guys to go through and look at what they are. So what are you signing your life away for? Right? And then still going to be due the 15th for final application. Please don't wait till the last week. I know it's hard for some of you because you have late audits, and so that's what you're waiting for. So if you guys have a really late audit and you need another week or so, just let me know. But what we really want to do is get you your final funding because by then we're into the second quarter. We want you to get the rest of your money by then, right? We'll have given you that 30%-ish up front, but we want you to get the rest. Okay, and just a reminder on the flow, when you submit an application, It comes in and lets us know. We review it. If it's approved, the GRA gets funded. If there's errors, we have to kick it all the way back. But most of those errors, you can't submit with an error. So you shouldn't be able to even submit it at all. So if you have questions because you've got an error, we want you to reach out on the forefront so that it doesn't delay this getting approved and you getting the money. Okay, so before we get to any questions, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to share a different screen and show you what I have been talking about all morning. Okay, we want this guy. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? I think we're good. Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, here we are. Okay, so here we are in beta, which is what it will be live, hopefully early next week. What I was talking about earlier was when you first start out and this isn't filled out, all you have is district home. So you got to say new manager, you got to put in your phone number, you got to have some sort of an email address. In this case, you might say, I don't have private schools or I don't want preschool funding. These all could be blank, but you have to click here to say what kind of maintenance of effort that you're doing. And once you do this, watch the page. Once you do this, ta-da! Now I have all my sections. That is the number one question I get every year is, where's all my sections? Well, they open up once you fill them out, okay? So now we're going to navigate just a little. I'm going to jump first before we show private school stuff, but I'm going to jump first to the school-aged budget. Well, actually, let's go back. CEIS budget, let's talk about that real quick. This is before you get to what's known as comprehensive early intervening services. If you guys have misidentified or over-identified certain populations, you'll get notified in year 1 or 2 from our office. You can set aside some money, up to 15%, to maybe address that before you have to. So these are optionals, right? So if you do have questions about this, let me know. If you're gonna have this in place, you gotta upload a plan. Okay, school-wide programs, just skimming over that because no one's doing it, but something important that this is where you say how many students would be served in this capacity. If you actually put in a budget in here, it will reduce the budget available over here. So really, there's nothing you have to do. You don't have to write me a huge narrative unless you're actually going to try to do a school-wide program. Okay, private schools, I just want to demonstrate this page again. When you get in here, if you've got to add your files, the minute you add a school and select a school, it will require this. So it says, wait, now you got to tell me what you're doing. These sections also, if you add a school in here, these sections will make you fill this stuff out. But these are important to tell me how much your proportionate share is going to be. For instance, here, if I go over to school-aged budget, I have 32,000 in this budget potentially for the 25-26 school year. There's nothing earmarked down here for private school because I don't know what it is. You guys have to tell me and you guys have to calculate that. So once this is completed, it will populate an amount in here, and that's all you're going to have to do for the preliminary app. It's when we get to the final app that you will actually see a whole new budget populate over here for private school. And I'll show you that in a minute. But let's go back to kind of where we're at. We're at our school age budget. You're going to make sure that you put in all the sections here with a narrative to help me balance this budget to expenditures. And you're going to hit save and move on. And you're going to keep going down the different sections. You're going to budget your massive amounts of preschool funding and tell me what you're going to do with it. Then you're going to come to maintenance of effort. You're going to come in here. Look, I only have 2 sections. Section 1 is going to match what's highlighted here. It's going to tell me when my threshold got set for these big amounts. Then we're going to come into section 3. That's what I'm saying I'm going to do. Now, this is where it kind of feels like garbage. Some people, all they do is copy this exactly because they know that that's the amount that the application is looking for, right? So they could put in the exact same dollar amount into their budget and hit save, and it would keep on moving. You do have to make sure you tell me your Medicaid match or tell me if you don't bill Medicaid at all, right? That's the only other validation, but that's what it's going to look like for you. But you could literally copy this over and hit save and it would say that's good enough. But if if during the closeout of this school year it went up, that's where when you do section 2 in the final app, if it does go up, you'll have to update this to the new real threshold that you just created, okay, for the next year. So that helps you know what you're going to do the next year. Really, this is all that it's going to look like. You don't have to do any of that hard excess cost stuff until the summer months, right? Then when you get to submit assurances, hey, you haven't filled anything out. You can't do assurances. So it's going to require that you do all these other sections. I'm going to show you a different district. I'm going to show you my fake CUNA. So you guys can see CUNA has a famous business manager with some private schools this year, so I can show you those sections. But since we were just looking at the assessment checklist in here, this is what this looks like. It's asking you a lot of policy and procedure related stuff that you have to answer yes to, about time and effort, about inventory, cash management, written policies. Yes, I have an audit, but here's where it talks about staffing changes. This helps us know if you guys might need more help, if it makes you a little higher risk. We have good financial management, travel policies, all the things under the sun, and for you to hit submit. And then separately, I just want to draw attention to the fact that this has some of these other sections opened up that we've never seen before. So in my fake application for CUNA right now, they have a CCEAS earmark where it is automatically flagged them for having to have a 15% penalty to require that they spend according to a plan that they have to upload. And then it will have any prior year reporting for who they served. So in this case, not too much change, but you'll notice that whatever the earmarked amount is, there's now a new section, and I kind of showed this in the slides, where they have to tell me what they did and who they're going to spend against. And then when we do GRA claims, we will be looking for what they're spending that on and if they're following their budget or if they're spending at all. Same thing for the private schools. So in this case, CUNA, fake CUNA, has 3 private schools. They've put in their dates that they've contacted. They've attached their confirmation, which is this fake right now. Then they've populated a proportionate share by telling me how many kiddos they've got. They didn't have anybody here in preschool age, but they had 5 kiddos that would qualify for $4,000 worth of equitable services, okay? So now, when we come into the school-aged budget, now we have all those extra rungs I was telling you about. So here's our private school amount that we now know about. So it subtracts it out of here, happen to have carryover, happen to have this other earmark, but this is the total still available to my district or my charter. And in here, you're budgeting against it all the way down. Still have the one-liners in here, right? One-liners, but now you have these other more open budgets, right? This is where you will have to fill those in object level for us, okay? Maintenance of effort, we kind of already looked at that. Same thing, you got to make sure you have this in here. And I've got to have a number here or tell me that you don't even bill Medicaid. Excess costs, just again to give you a view of that guy. Because I reported these other sections, it's populated them in based on me filling this out first. So that's super helpful. And let me just show you again where those came from. So this $26,530 for preschool over here, I reported $26,530 over here already. I didn't want to make you guys have to do it again. It sucks it in for you. So hopefully these are just little details that will help you. When you guys go to submit the assurances, if there's anything that's out of balance, it will tell you, sorry, Charlie, you can't do it yet. But something else you might notice when you get in here, we moved the save buttons to the bottom. Not for this section, but when you do the assurances, so you don't have to keep scrolling all the way up and down. Just some small things, but hopefully these are helpful to you guys. Again, I have 80 slides, 79 or 80 slides that show more details and help you guide you through some of these sections. However, I wanted to be able to show you guys live just to help you guys navigate that. But really, overall, not a ton of changes unless you have private schools and or CCEIS. But the biggest changes for those are those separate grants in the GRA. Now, I've been talking. I want to come off mute. or have everybody else come off mute. Do you guys have questions for me on this, the flow, the timing, anything you guys can think of that might, man, Lisa, thanks, but could you really just do this instead? Do you guys have any other thoughts, wonderings?
This is Cynthia up in Boundary County. I have a question under the private schools. It always just shows the two private schools that we can pull in that have been there forever, but we had a new one come in 2 years ago. How do I add that school? Because I want those numbers to be counted. So,
Absolutely. Yep. So
and
great
when I hit
question.
add school,
Yep.
it just gives me a list of schools. It doesn't allow me to add a school.
New one. So what she's asking, and this is the functionality, when you go to add a school, here you are. This happens almost every year, at least once or twice, somewhere in the state, there's a new one that pops up, and we may see a lot more popping up. So for you guys, you're doing child find like you're supposed to, and you found this new strip mall with a private school just popped up by the Albertsons or wherever. And so in that case, you need to send me an email and say, hey, great news. I have 3 new private schools. This is what they're named. And then I send an email over to somebody in school finance and we assign one of these different looking LEA numbers. They're not a normal LEA. They're not for profit number. And then we get it built in here for the drop down so that you can assign that. So super important that you tell me so that we can make sure that you get those counts. Now, again, the counts that you're going to give for enrollment is going to go towards next year's allocations. Kind of like how right now when I'm doing allocations, I grab best enrollment for all of y'all from this current school year, the ones that just got updated in the spring. I'm also going to be grabbing the private school enrollment that you guys put in last year in the application. Those get added to your full total enrollment for this year's allocation. So what you're going to put in here is going to help you out next year. So absolutely all the new ones, get those numbers in there. But if you don't have them populated, you got to tell me the name of it. It's ABC Charter School in Moscow. And then I will get that built for you and tell you. I know Ramona goes through this every year in West Data. It seems like they've got at least one new one. And so she knows it works. You just got to let me know so I can get it built. It's not going to change your total that you get as a district. It's going to change the proportionate share calculation potentially, though, if one of those kids are at that new one and they're not built. But regardless, you want to get them added. So definitely let me know. Great question. Thank you for saying that. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions, wonderings? I swear I'll get allocations to you as soon as possible. I will tell
Hey, so
you.
this is Heather Perry. Can I ask
Yeah.
a quick question?
Yeah.
I just came from the CSFGA workshop and they had presented a new FTE worksheet that they're going to have us use. Are we going to be using that same worksheet for our IDA application as well?
I don't require FTE in mine.
Okay.
You can if you want to have it on your own, just to help you to track that. But I don't require FTE in my detailed budget. I'd like to see somehow that it's paras or special ed teachers or licensed staff or the director. If I see that you're just paying principals, I'm going to say sorry. But I don't even look for the full description because I do that through monitoring and through the GRA claims. If I see staff that don't look right. Title I has such strict restrictions in there. That's why they have to have that. But we don't have to. And the other reasoning behind that for me is that you guys have the 3 funding streams. You've got Medicaid, IDEA, and maintenance of effort going on simultaneously, and you're moving, shuffling around, doing your year-end closeout. That's madness happening right now. And if I saw Cynthia, Judy, and Mary in there, and then you had to do a tweak to that in the spring to absorb more Medicaid and the FTE chain, that could be a nightmare for you guys. So that's the other reasoning why we don't, because those 3 funding sources are fluid. Right? You have to spend out whatever you get in the Medicaid. It's a cost reimbursement. So you got to apply expenses against it. It pays before IDEA. So that's a dynamic change fluctuating back and forth throughout the summer when you're doing your final accruals. And by then it would be too late to update last year's budgets, right, to that level of detail for us. Now, it's a great new addition for the CFSGA folks, for the other title funding and whatnot that you're using it for, but we just don't require it here because of that fluid changes going back and forth. But just as a reminder, so you guys have that in mind, when you guys do that final closeout, if you will, if you have a couple of people that you've just moved for the May or June slightly from MOE to IDEA or something, just write that or notate that somehow on your time and effort. You don't have to revise the entire thing because it's still overall part of special education programming. But I know you guys are in the midst of that as you're trying to see where are we at with Medicaid? Do we have all of our claims in, right? So that might have tweaked some of the time and effort. I just want to see that you've notated that in case I sampled for time and effort for you guys for monitoring and see a bunch of journal entries. I need to know that you at least accounted for it somehow to say, yep, we moved Judy and Susie over to MOE or over to IDEA just for the June payroll. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? You guys, I appreciate you. I want to again holler out to Michael. Thank you for helping me admit folks today and being my backup person. Also, I will email out these slides to you all. They're not I'll just do the slide deck itself, not as a PDF, so you guys have that. And then I'll be posting them in once they're made accessible, and the recording. Again, please reach out at any time. I hope to have the allocation announcements out either tomorrow or early next week once they're approved. And then at that point, the application will be open. So once you guys start digging in there, if you have questions, reach out to myself or Sherry, who will be back. And then again, just thank you for your hard work. And we will end today by saying, have a great year-end closeout. Thanks, guys.